Kit, these games and no Olympic Games are cheap. You know, you have years of building up infrastructure, building in stadiums. Sometimes it takes decades for a city to pay this off. The 1976 Olympics in Montreal, they were saddled with debt. It took 30 years for that city to pay it off. What's going to happen with Tokyo when we don't have the revenue from ticket sales and now it sounds like even sponsorships?
The price tag is about approximately $18 billion. So, but I don't think that anybody goes into the Olympics thinking these days that they're going to come out with a lot of money as a result. It's a giant party. You put out whatever you've got. You go into debt to make it a great party, and then you work 30 years down the pipe to pay for it. I don't think that. I think that not getting ticket sales is horrendous, and that's going to make it. It's going to take longer for us to recoup those losses. There's no question about that.
Do you have anything to add, Christian, to that?
Yes, I think the Montreal situation was a little bit different in terms of where Montreal was at that stage in the late 70s. And Tokyo, as we talked about previously, is benefiting from a renewed popularity, particularly from Asian and Chinese tourists. So if you think of how you could monetize something like an Olympic stadium, for instance, people coming from China, if there were to be a massive concert by some wonderful artist who everyone wants to see, you could host them in that stadium and recoup a lot of your expenses. So I think it is a very different trajectory, although, as Kit points out, it's a big nut, and politically, people notice when you spend $18 billion.
Yes, they definitely do. They definitely do. So let's talk about Canada in the few minutes we have left before we have to unfortunately wrap. Let's talk about Canada's relationship with Japan. How was it pre-COVID? Did we have a good relationship in general?
Yes.
Yes.
Canada has had a fantastic relationship with Japan on many levels. Canada, I think, societally has so many things that they share with Japan. It's easy to maintain the relationship across the Pacific. Japan is also a big consumer of energy. Canada is a big producer of energy. Japan is a big consumer of food. Canada is a big producer of food. There's a lot of hand-in-glove stuff that really works well. And the flexibility on trade agreements and so forth has been something that Canada has been able to optimize as well.
And Kit, has the COVID situation or the Tokyo Games, have they impacted that relationship in any way?
That's a really good question. I grew up in the United States and Canada, so I have sort of a triple view of things. And I've noticed when I say that I spent part of my childhood in Canada, Japanese are thrilled. They love the idea of Canada, just so you know. They envision endless bounties of nature, kind people, a safe country, a balanced country. So I prefer to say I'm from Canada rather than from the United States usually, because there's more of a competitive nature between the United States and Japan. I would say it's less love. But I don't know exactly how the games have affected that relationship. I'm not sure that I can point to any specific differences. I think that pretty much it's the same. Christian, what do you feel about that?
It is kind of the same. There's a few important crossing points in that the Canadians are recognized in some sports, and for instance, the first ever international rugby game for Japan was played against Canada.
Okay.
So when rugby is played here, as it was in 2019, and it will be played in the Sevens in the Olympics, that's always a special opportunity. And the evolution and promotion of women's sports in Canada has been pretty seamless, and that's something that Japan has been working to emulate and has been doing pretty well on. So Canada, has a lot of women that are perhaps doing better than the men this year.
Okay, last question.
That's exciting.
In the last few seconds we have left, will you be watching the games?
Oh, absolutely. I love sports. I wrote an entire book of haiku on sports. And people don't think of poetry and sports going hand in hand, but they do. And yes, I'll be watching everything I can get my eyes on.
Christian?
I would agree. It's still people competing at the highest level for their country, and it's very exciting. So we've paid a lot for it. We might as well enjoy it.
We're going to enjoy it. Well, thank you both so much, especially with the hour change, for joining me today. It's been thrilling.